The lamb was burning. I could smell it from where I stood in the doorway of Marcus's childhood home, my hands gripping a ceramic dish of ubi halaya I'd spent 3 hours perfecting. The purple yam dessert gleamed under the afternoon light streaming through lace curtains, a bridge between two worlds I thought I was finally connecting. "Maya, you made it!" Marcus's sister Jennifer rushed forward, pulling me into a hug that smelled like Sampaguita perfume and wine. "Mom's been asking about you. She's so excited you're here for Easter." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I smiled, warmth spreading through my chest. After 2 years of dating Marcus, this was the first major family holiday I'd been invited to. The first time his mother, Doña Cristina, had specifically requested my presence. Marcus had been acting strange all week, distant, checking his phone constantly, avoiding eye contact, but I'd chalked it up to work stress at his tech startup. "Tarana," Jennifer said, switching effortlessly between English and Tagalog as she led me deeper into the house. "Everyone's in the dining room. Lola's already asking when you're going to give her great-grandchildren." My laugh came out strained. Jennifer didn't know that Marcus and I had been fighting about our future for months now. About whether we'd move in together, about meeting each other's families more seriously, about what we were building. I'd been pushing for more commitment. He'd been pulling away. The dining room exploded with noise and color, a long table covered in white linen, laden with dishes that made my mouth water. Lechon in the center, its skin crackling and golden. Pancit palabok with its orange sauce and scattered toppings. Lumpia stacked like golden treasures. My mother's side of the family cooked like this, though I'd lost touch with many of them after she passed when I was 12. "Maya!" Doña Cristina swept toward me, elegant in a cream-colored dress, her silver hair pulled back in a perfect chignon. "Halika dito, anak. Let me see what you brought." I handed her the ube halaya, watching her face carefully. This was a test I knew. Not just of my cooking, but of whether I understood what family meant in Filipino culture, whether I belonged. She lifted the cover, and her expression softened. "Gawa mo ito?" "Yes, po. My Lola's recipe, or what I remember of it." Something flickered across her face. Approval mixed with sadness. "Your Lola would be proud. Come sit. Marcus is..." She glanced around, frowning slightly. "He's outside with his kuya and his titos, probably talking business again." I settled into a chair next to Jennifer, accepting a plate piled high with food from various aunties whose names I was still learning. The conversation flowed around me in a river of mixed English and Tagalog, and I caught maybe 60% of it. Enough to laugh at the right moments, to nod when appropriate. My father had been white, Irish-American, to be specific. My mother, Filipina, from Manila originally. She'd tried to teach me Tagalog as a child, but after she died, my father had let it slip away. "Too painful," he'd said. Too much of her in those words. By the time I realized what I'd lost, the language had become a stranger to me. I understood more than I could speak, fragments and phrases floating in my memory like ghosts. "So, Maya," Tita Carmen leaned forward, her eyes bright with wine and curiosity. "When are you and Marcus getting married? 2 years is long enough, diba?" Heat crept up my neck. "We're taking our time, Po, making sure we're ready." "Ready?" She laughed, the sound sharp. "When I was your age, I already had 3 children. You're what, 28? 29 next month. See? Tick-tock, anak. Don't let him keep you waiting too long." Men need a little push sometimes. Jennifer shot me an apologetic look and changed the subject to her daughter's upcoming school play. I pushed food around my plate, appetite fading. Where was Marcus? It had been 30 minutes since I arrived, and he hadn't even come inside to greet me. I excused myself, following the sound of male voices through the kitchen and out to the covered patio. The afternoon sun painted everything gold. The garden with its carefully tended roses, the fountain bubbling in the corner, the group of men standing around a smoking grill, beer bottles in hand. Marcus stood with his back to me, his broad shoulders tense beneath his polo shirt. His older brother Ramon was gesturing animatedly about something while their uncles laughed and interjected comments. I started to call out, to announce myself, when I heard it. Doña Cristina's voice, coming from just inside the kitchen door behind me. I hadn't realized she'd followed me out. She was speaking in rapid Tagalog to someone on the phone, her voice carrying that particular tone mothers use when they're being frank. Hindi seryoso yan. He's just, how do you say, experimenting? See, Marcus, he likes to try new things, but he knows what we expect in the end. Someone who understands our culture, our faith, someone from a good Filipino family. My feet froze to the patio stones. My heart began a slow, heavy pound in my chest. Ooh, she's here now. Nice girl, pretty enough, but half lang, you know? And the American half is too strong. She doesn't even speak Tagalog properly. How can she raise Filipino children if she can't teach them their own language? Hindi puede. The phone conversation continued, but I couldn't hear it anymore over the rushing in my ears. Half. Not Filipino enough. Can't speak the language. Not suitable for raising Filipino children. I turned slowly, mechanically, back toward the house. My hands were shaking. The beautiful afternoon had transformed into something surreal, dreamlike. I felt like I was watching myself from outside my body as I walked back through the kitchen, past the aunties preparing dessert, back toward the dining room. Maya, are you okay? You look pale. Jennifer caught my arm, her face concerned. I just need water. Please. She hurried to get me a glass while I sank into a chair, my mind racing. 2 years. 2 years of dating Marcus, of slowly falling in love with him, of believing we were building something real. 2 years of him telling me not to worry about his mother's initial coolness, that she just needed time to get to know me. 2 years of me learning to cook Filipino dishes, trying to reconnect with my mother's culture, studying Tagalog phrases late at night so I could impress his family. All of it a phase, an experiment, something he was trying on before settling down with someone suitable. Here. Jennifer pressed the cold glass into my hand. Seriously, are you okay? You're scaring me. Has Marcus? I started, then stopped. How did I even ask this? Has he talked to your mom about us? About the future? Jennifer's face did something complicated, a brief flash of guilt before she smoothed it over. Why do you ask? Just curious. I mean, we've been together for 2 years. I thought maybe he'd mentioned something about next steps. She sat down next to me, lowering her voice. Look, Maya, you're great, okay? I really like you. But you have to understand, our mother is traditional. She has very specific ideas about who Marcus should end up with. She's been not so subtly introducing him to daughters of her friends from church. Girls from Manila, you know. Faubis with strong family connections. Faubis. Fresh off the boat. The term landed like a slap. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. And Marcus? My voice sounded distant, hollow. What does he think about these introductions? Jennifer shifted uncomfortably. He's the favorite, you know? The golden boy. The one who's supposed to carry on the family name, take over Lolo's businesses eventually. There's a lot of pressure. I think he's just trying to keep everyone happy while figuring out what he wants. By leading me on for 2 years? I didn't say that. But her eyes said she'd thought it. The men's voices grew louder as they approached the house. Marcus appeared in the doorway, laughing at something Ramon had said, his face flushed from beer and sun. When he saw me, his smile faltered. Maya, hey, sorry I didn't come find you earlier. We were just experimenting. The word came out before I could stop it. His eyes widened. What? Everyone in the dining room had gone quiet, sensing tension. Doña Cristina appeared behind Marcus, her phone now tucked away, her face carefully neutral. Nothing? I stood, setting down the water glass with a soft click. I actually need to go. Work emergency. I just got a text. What? But we haven't even had dessert yet. You brought ube? You should save it. For someone more suitable. I grabbed my purse from where I'd left it on a side table. Someone who speaks better Tagalog. Someone who's not just half. The word hung in the air like smoke. Doña Cristina's face went pale, then red. Marcus looked between us, confusion morphing into understanding and then panic. Maya, wait. Whatever you think you heard, I heard enough. My voice was steady now, cold. Thank you for the lovely Easter, Doña Cristina. I hope you find the perfect Filipina for your son. Someone who'll give you proper grandchildren. Someone who isn't just a phase. I was already moving toward the door when Marcus caught up with me, his hand on my arm. Please, let me explain. You don't understand the context. Context? I spun to face him, and something in my expression made him step back. The context is that you've been wasting 2 years of my life while you figured out whether I was Filipino enough for your family. The context is that I've been killing myself trying to reconnect with a culture my mother died before she could fully teach me, and your mother thinks I'm not worthy because I don't speak the language fluently enough. The context is that you're 29 years old, and you're still letting your mother choose your partner like you're living in some kind of arranged marriage situation. That's not fair. Fair. My laugh was sharp, bitter. You want to talk about fair? I introduced you to my father after 3 months. I brought you to my mother's grave and told you about how I lost her, how I lost that whole side of myself when she died. I shared everything with you, and you couldn't even be honest enough to tell me that I was never going to be enough for your family. Maya, I love you. No. The word came out with more force than I intended. You love the idea of me. You love having a girlfriend who's exotic enough to be interesting but not too Filipino to make your white friends uncomfortable. You love that I'm pretty and successful and make you look good, but you don't love me enough to fight for me. You don't love me enough to tell your mother that I'm the one you choose. Silence. He didn't deny it. That told me everything. I pulled my arm free from his grip and walked to my car, maintaining my composure until I was behind the wheel. Only then, pulling away from that beautiful house with its perfect garden and its perfect Filipino Easter celebration, did I let the tears come. I drove aimlessly for an hour, my mother's face floating in my memory. She'd been so beautiful, so strong. She'd married my father despite her family's objections, had chosen love over tradition. And then she died too young, leaving me caught between two worlds, never quite enough for either. The tears dried eventually, replaced by something colder, something harder. I pulled over at a Starbucks and sat in the parking lot, my hand still gripping the steering wheel. My phone buzzed with texts from Marcus. I ignored them, opening my laptop instead. There was work to do. Not the kind of work I'd lied about having, but real work. The kind that would require every ounce of my intelligence and every connection I'd built over the past 7 years. You see, there was something Marcus's family didn't know, something Marcus himself had only a vague awareness of. My consulting business that he sometimes made jokes about, wondering when I'd get a real job, wasn't quite what it appeared to be. After my mother died, my father had thrown himself into work, building his small investment firm into something more substantial. When he remarried 5 years ago and moved to Arizona, he'd left the company to me. I'd rebranded it, modernized it, and expanded it into something he never could have imagined. Catalyst Ventures. We specialized in identifying promising startups, providing early-stage funding, and connecting them with the resources they needed to scale. We were small, selective, and very, very good at what we did. Our portfolio included 3 companies that had gone public in the last 2 years alone. We were the investors that startups dreamed of attracting. And Marcus's company? The tech startup he was so proud of, the one where he was VP of product development, the one that was about to close its Series B funding round? We were their lead investor. I'd kept my connection to Catalyst Ventures quiet in my personal life. Part of it was habit. I'd learned from my mother's death that showing all your cards made you vulnerable. Part of it was a desire for normalcy. I wanted people to like me for me, not for what my company could do for them. But now, sitting in that Starbucks parking lot with the taste of humiliation still bitter in my mouth, I felt that desire for normalcy crumble into dust. My phone rang. Not Marcus this time, but Daniel Chen, my co-founder and CFO. We'd met at Stanford, bonded over being half Asian in a predominantly white tech world, and built Catalyst together over bottles of cheap wine and endless late-night strategy sessions. "Tell me you're not still at that Easter thing," Daniel said without preamble. "We need to talk about the Novatech deal." Novatech. Marcus's company. The Series B round that would value them at $50 million. The funding that would make Marcus and his co-founders rich, set them up for eventual acquisition or IPO. "I left early," I said, my voice flat. "What's the issue with Novatech?" "No issue exactly, just I've been digging deeper into their financials, and something feels off. The numbers they presented in their pitch deck don't quite match what I'm seeing in their actual burn rate, and there's some weird stuff in their hiring practices. Looks like they've been prioritizing people with family connections over qualified candidates. Classic nepotism red flags." Family connections. Nepotism. Of course. "Send me everything," I said. "I want to review it, personally before we sign anything." "Maya, we're supposed to close next week. If we pull out now..." "I'm not saying we're pulling out. I'm saying I want to look closer. Isn't that what we do? Due diligence?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "What happened at Easter?" I closed my eyes, seeing Doña Cristina's face again, hearing her words. Half-lang. Not suitable. "Nothing that changes the fundamentals of business," I said. "But maybe it changes what I'm willing to overlook. Send me those files, Daniel, all of them. And let's schedule a Monday morning meeting with the full investment committee. I think we need to discuss the Novatech deal more thoroughly. You're the boss. He paused. You know I'm here if you need to talk, right? Not as your CFO. As your friend. I know. Thanks, Daniel. I'll see you Monday. I hung up and sat there for another moment, watching people come and go from the coffee shop. Young couples, families with children, groups of friends laughing together. All of them moving through their simple, uncomplicated lives. My mother used to say that being Filipino meant understanding pakikisama, the art of getting along, of maintaining smooth interpersonal relations, of not causing waves. But she also taught me lakas ng loob, strength of spirit, courage. Maybe it was time to have more of the second and less of the first. Another text from Marcus. Please call me. We need to talk. I'm sorry. I typed back. I need space. Don't contact me for a while. Then I blocked his number. My phone buzzed immediately. Jennifer this time. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. Maya, I'm so sorry. I had no idea Mom would say that stuff. Marcus is losing his mind here. He's been yelling at Mom for the past hour. Too little, too late, I said. Please don't blame him for our mother's views. He's been trying to change her mind. He just didn't want to stress you out by telling you how bad it was. Stop. My voice was sharp. Stop making excuses for him. He's 29, not 19. If he wanted to stand up to his mother, he would have. If he wanted to make me feel secure in our relationship, he would have. But he didn't. Because deep down, he agreed with her. Or at least, he wasn't willing to fight for me. That's not true. Jennifer, I appreciate that you're trying to help, but I need you to understand something. I spent 2 years trying to be enough for your family. Learning to cook, studying language, reading about Filipino history and culture. I did all of that because I loved your brother and I wanted to honor the part of myself that I lost when my mother died. But I will never do it again. I will never shrink myself to fit into someone else's idea of what I should be. I get that. I do. But Maya, Marcus really does love you. He's been under a lot of pressure. The company, the family expectations, all of it. The company. Right. A cold sort of calm settled over me. Tell me about Novatech, I said. How's the funding round going? What? Oh, good, I think. Marcus says they're about to close the Series B. Some investor called Catalyst Ventures is leading it. It's going to change everything for him, for all of them. Why? Just curious. It sounds like a big deal. It is. He's been so stressed about it. That's probably part of why he's been weird lately. You know how men get about work. I did know. I knew exactly how men got about work, especially when everything they'd built was about to either soar or crash depending on whether investors believed in them. I need to go, Jennifer. Take care of yourself. Wait, Maya. I hung up and opened my email. The files from Daniel were already waiting. I spent the next hour in that parking lot, laptop balanced on my steering wheel, reviewing financial statements and hiring records and growth projections. The picture that emerged was not pretty. Novatech wasn't fraudulent exactly, but it was sloppy. They'd been burning through their Series A money faster than they'd projected, covering it up by cutting corners on essential hires. The family connections Daniel had noticed weren't illegal, but they showed a pattern. Marcus and his co-founders consistently hiring people they'd gone to school with, people from their same social circles, rather than the most qualified candidates. There was a term for this in Silicon Valley, the bro problem. Companies that looked diverse on the surface, but were actually homogeneous in the ways that mattered. built on networks of privilege that excluded talented people who didn't fit the mold. I thought about my mother again, about how hard she'd worked to become a nurse in America, about the discrimination she'd faced, the way she'd had to be twice as good to get half the recognition, about the Filipino nurses I'd met over the years who told similar stories, incredible skills, incredible work ethic, and yet still often overlooked for advancement. My phone buzzed with another blocked call. Marcus, probably using someone else's phone. I ignored it. By the time I drove home to my apartment in Oakland, it was dark. My ube halaya was still sitting in Doña Cristina's kitchen, probably being picked at by relatives who thought I'd stormed out over some minor misunderstanding. They had no idea what was coming. I poured myself a glass of wine, a nice Pinot Noir my mother would have liked, and settled on my couch with my laptop. I had a lot of work to do before Monday, due diligence to review, questions to formulate, alternative investment opportunities to research. But first, I opened my Photos app and scrolled back to pictures of my mother, her smile, bright and warm, her hands always moving, always creating something. In one photo, she was teaching me to make lumpia, laughing as I struggled to fold the wrapper properly. "I'm sorry, Mama," I whispered to the screen. "I'm sorry I let myself forget who I was for someone who didn't value it, but I won't make that mistake again." The wine was smooth on my tongue, warming me from the inside. I closed the photos and opened a new document, beginning to outline my strategy for Monday's meeting. I wouldn't kill the Novatech deal entirely. That would be too obvious, too vindictive. But I would ensure that Catalyst's investment came with conditions. Strong conditions. The kind that would transform how Novatech operated from the ground up. If Marcus wanted Catalyst's money, he was going to have to earn it properly. No more cutting corners, no more nepotism, no more boys' club mentality that valued where you came from over what you could contribute. And he was going to have to do it all while knowing that the investor he'd been courting, the one who held his company's future in her hands, was the woman he'd dismissed as not Filipino enough. I smiled, taking another sip of wine. This wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about accountability, about using the power I'd built to create the kind of change my mother would have wanted to see. Outside my window, Oakland glittered in the darkness. Somewhere across the bay, Marcus was probably still trying to figure out how to fix things, how to smooth everything over. He thought this was a relationship problem that could be solved with apologies and explanations. He had no idea it was a business problem now. And in business, I didn't believe in phases. I believed in results. Monday morning arrived wrapped in fog, the kind that made San Francisco feel like a different world. I stood in front of my closet, considering my options. The navy Armani suit, too aggressive. The cream Chanel, too soft. Finally, I settled on charcoal gray theory with a silk blouse the exact shade of Uba purple, a subtle reminder of what had been left behind in that kitchen. My phone had 43 unread messages. I'd unblocked Marcus's number Sunday night, curious to see what he'd say. The progression was almost textbook. Confusion, anger, pleading, bargaining, more anger, then finally silence around 3 a.m. The last message, sent at 2:47 a.m., simply said, "I know I messed up, but please don't throw away what we had over my mother's ignorance. I love you." I deleted it without responding. Catalyst Ventures occupied the top floor of a renovated building in Soma, all glass walls and reclaimed wood, and the kind of calculated casualness that cost a fortune to achieve. Daniel was already in the main conference room when I arrived, reviewing documents on the large screen.
"You look terrifying,"
he said by way of greeting. I'm not sure if I should be worried for Novatech or impressed. Both. I set down my coffee, surveying the room. Is everyone confirmed? Yup. Investment committee at 9, Novatech team at 10:30. I still think you should tell me what happened over Easter. You'll figure it out. I pulled up my presentation on my laptop. Did you finish the additional due diligence I requested? Daniel's expression shifted to professional concern. I did. Maya, there's more problems than I initially found. Their customer retention numbers are inflated. They're counting free trial users as active customers. Their tech lead just quit, and they didn't disclose it in any of their updates to us. And there's this. He pulled up a spreadsheet. Their hiring data. 92% of their employees went to one of 5 universities. 87% are male. They have exactly 2 people of color in leadership positions, and both are in HR, not technical roles. And their investor pitch emphasized their commitment to diversity and inclusion. Exactly. It's not illegal to have a homogeneous company, but lying about your values to attract investment? That's fraud, technically. I studied the numbers, feeling that cold calm settle over me again. What about their burn rate? They'll be out of money in 4 months without this funding. 6 if they make serious cuts. They know it. We know it. Which means we have all the leverage. The rest of the investment committee arrived. Priya, our legal counsel, Marcus Wong, no relation to my ex, though the name made me smile darkly, and Amanda, who handled portfolio company operations. We spent an hour reviewing everything, and with each slide, each data point, I watched their enthusiasm for the deal cool. I'm not saying we walk away, I concluded. I'm saying we restructure the entire deal. New terms, new oversight, new requirements. They'll never agree to this, Amanda said, reviewing my proposed term sheet. You're essentially asking for board control and the right to approve all senior hires. That's VC suicide. No founder would accept these conditions. They will if they're desperate enough. I closed my laptop. And Novatech is very, very desperate. They just don't know that we know it yet. At 10:25, reception called up. The Novatech team had arrived. My heart did something complicated in my chest, a stutter step between anticipation and dread. I'd spent 2 years looking at Marcus across dinner tables, waking up next to him on lazy Sundays, believing I knew who he was. In 5 minutes, I'd see him as something else entirely. A CEO trying to save his company, realizing too late who held the power. Maya. Daniel touched my arm gently. You sure you want to lead this meeting? I can handle it if you need me to. No. My voice was steady. I need to do this. They came in laughing about something, that easy confidence of men who'd never been told no. Marcus walked in first, his hand on the shoulder of his co-founder Ryan, both of them in the startup uniform of expensive jeans and button-downs. Their CTO David followed, carrying a laptop covered in coding stickers. Marcus's smile was wide, practiced, perfect. Thanks so much for making time today. We're really excited to... His voice died mid-sentence. His face went through a remarkable journey. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, and finally, pure horror. Maya? Mr. Santos? I kept my voice professionally cool, gesturing to the seats across from us. Please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss. What? I don't understand. You work here. I own here. I let that sink in for a moment. I'm the managing partner of Catalyst Ventures. I founded this firm 7 years ago. Surely you did your due diligence on your potential investors." Ryan and David exchanged glances, clearly lost. They knew me as Marcus's girlfriend, the woman who sometimes showed up to company happy hours and asked polite questions about their work.
"There must be some mistake,"
Marcus said, his face flushing.
"The managing partner is listed as Mr. Santos. You assumed it was a man.
Maya and Marcus are both common Filipino names, wouldn't you say?" I opened my folder. "But let's not waste time on assumptions. We're here to discuss your Series B funding round. Or rather, whether it's going to happen at all."
"Whether?"
David leaned forward.
"Look, I don't know what's going on here personally, but we have a signed term sheet."
"A non-binding term sheet," Priya interjected smoothly, "which gives Catalyst the right to withdraw pending final due diligence. Due diligence we've now completed." I pulled up the presentation on the screen. "Let's talk about what we found." For the next 30 minutes, I walked them through every discrepancy, every inflated metric, every concerning pattern in their business. I watched Marcus's face cycle through emotions, shame, anger, fear, calculation. He kept trying to interrupt, to explain, but I rolled over him with data. "Your customer retention is actually 42%, not 78% as stated. Your technical lead resigned 2 weeks ago, and you failed to disclose this material change. Your burn rate is triple what you projected, which means you'll be insolvent by September without this funding."
"We can explain all of this," Ryan started.
"I'm not finished." My voice cut through the room like ice. "We also noticed some concerning patterns in your hiring practices. Your team is overwhelmingly homogeneous despite your stated commitment to diversity. You've consistently hired from the same network of schools and personal connections rather than conducting proper searches for qualified candidates." Marcus found his voice finally. "That's not fair. We hire the best people you know, which, given your networks, are mostly people who look like you, went to school with you, and come from similar backgrounds. Tell me, Mr. Santos, how many resumes did you review before hiring your last 3 engineers?" Silence.
"Let me guess.
They were referrals from friends. People you already knew. You didn't post the positions publicly. You didn't conduct a real search." I leaned forward. "That's not hiring the best people. That's nepotism dressed up as networking."
"Look,"
David said, his voice tight. "I don't know what personal drama is happening here, but this feels like a witch hunt. A witch hunt would be irrational. This is pattern recognition." I clicked to the next slide. "Let me tell you about a company we invested in 3 years ago. Similar profile to yours. Strong product, weak execution, homogeneous team. We made the investment conditional on them implementing real hiring practices and bringing in diverse talent. Within 18 months, they'd tripled their revenue. The diverse perspectives they brought in identified market opportunities the founders had completely missed. 2 years later, they were acquired for $200 million. I paused, letting that number hang in the air. Or let me tell you about another company. Refused our conditions. Said they knew how to run their business better than we did. They took money from a less demanding investor. They ran out of funding 8 months later and had to shut down. The team? All found jobs immediately at other companies. The diverse candidates they'd passed over? Many of them went on to start their own successful ventures."
"What's your point?"
Marcus's voice was strained.
"My point is that this isn't personal. This is business. And the business case for diversity isn't just about fairness. It's about survival.
Companies with diverse teams are more innovative, more adaptable, more likely to succeed. You're building a product for a diverse market with a team that represents maybe 15% of that market. That's not just morally wrong, it's stupid. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. So what are you saying? You want us to fire people? No. I want you to fix your systems so this doesn't keep happening. But more importantly, I want you to acknowledge that you have a problem. And I want to know if you're willing to actually solve it, or if you're just going to make excuses. The room fell silent. Daniel pulled up our revised term sheet on the screen. Here's what Catalyst is prepared to offer, I said. We'll still lead your Series B, but at a lower valuation, $35 million instead of $50. We get 2 board seats instead of 1 and board approval rights on all C-level hires. You'll work with our talent partner to implement blind resume reviews and diverse candidate slates for all future positions. You'll publish diversity metrics quarterly. And you'll bring in an external HR consultant to audit your current practices and make recommendations. That's insane, David said. You're asking us to give up control of our own company. I'm asking you to run it better. Or you can walk away, try to find another investor willing to overlook your problems. But I'll save you some time. I've already sent our due diligence findings to the 3 other firms that were considering your round. I'm guessing they're going to have similar concerns. Marcus stared at me, and I watched him finally understand. This wasn't his girlfriend being upset about a family dinner. This was a reckoning. Why? His voice cracked slightly. Why are you doing this? Because someone has... I met his eyes directly. You stood in your mother's house and let her call me half like it was a deficiency. You let her say I wasn't Filipino enough, wasn't suitable enough. And you know what the real insult was? You agreed with her. Maybe not consciously, maybe not with words, but with your silence. With your failure to defend me. With 2 years of keeping me separate from your real life while you figured out if I was worth fighting for? Maya, I'm not finished. You and your family made me feel like I had to earn my place in Filipino culture. Like I had to prove I was worthy of being called Filipina because I didn't speak the language perfectly, because my mother died before she could teach me everything. But you know what I realized? I don't have to prove anything. My mother was Filipina. That makes me Filipina. And no amount of language tests or cultural gatekeeping changes that. I stood up, and the rest of my team followed my lead. You have 48 hours to accept these terms or walk away. If you accept, we'll have our lawyers draw up the final documents. If you decline, good luck finding someone else to fund a company that's 4 months from insolvency. Maya, please, can we talk privately? Marcus stood too, reaching for me. No. Everything I needed to say, I've said. This is business now. Only business. I walked out of the conference room with my head high, Daniel and the rest of the team following. Behind me, I could hear Marcus and his co-founders erupting into argument. The heavy glass door cut off their voices. Back in my office, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My hands were shaking slightly. Daniel appeared in the doorway with a bottle of sparkling water. That was... He paused, searching for the word. Magnificent. Brutal, but magnificent. Though I'm guessing there's a story there about Easter dinner. His mother told someone on the phone that I was just a phase, that I wasn't Filipino enough because I'm only half and I don't speak Tagalog fluently. She said I couldn't raise proper Filipino children. I took the water, pressing the cold bottle against my temple. Marcus heard it all and said nothing. For 2 years, he let me think we had a future while his mother was literally planning his marriage to someone else. Jesus. Daniel sat down across from me. And the thing is, Those same guys talk constantly about how hard it is being Filipino in tech, how they have to prove themselves, fight stereotypes, but then they turn around and do the same thing to others. Exactly. I pulled up my email. Already messages were flooding in from the other VCs I'd contacted. 3 had withdrawn their interest in Novatech. One was asking if Catalyst would consider partnering on a different deal. The thing is, I don't even think Marcus is a bad person. I think he's just blind, privileged in ways he doesn't recognize, and he's never had to face consequences for that blindness. Until now. My phone buzzed. Jennifer. Maya, what the hell did you just do? Marcus called me crying. He said you sabotaged his company, that you're ruining everything because you're mad about Easter. I put her on speaker so Daniel could hear. I didn't sabotage anything. I conducted proper due diligence and found significant problems with his company's practices and financials. That's my job. Oh, come on. You're doing this to get back at him. Jennifer, let me ask you something. If a company is burning through money twice as fast as they claimed, lying about customer retention, and practicing nepotistic hiring, should investors give them $50 million? Silence. I'm not punishing Marcus. I'm holding him accountable. There's a difference. If he accepts our revised terms and actually implements the changes we're requiring, his company will be stronger for it. But if he's too proud or too stubborn to acknowledge his mistakes, then yes, his company will fail. That's on him, not me. He says you poisoned the other investors against him. I shared our due diligence findings. That's standard practice. If other investors chose to withdraw based on that information, it means they saw the same problems we did. You're being vindictive. No. I'm being professional. There's a difference. And honestly, Jennifer, I'm tired of being told I'm too emotional or too vindictive when I'm simply doing my job well. If Marcus were a company Catalyst had no personal connection to, we would be having the exact same conversation. The only difference is he's having to face the consequences of his actions for the first time in his life. I hung up before she could respond. Daniel was grinning. You know they're going to accept the terms, right? They have no choice. I know. And you're going to make them a better company despite themselves. That's the plan. Your mother would be proud. The words hit harder than I expected. I felt tears prick at my eyes and blinked them away. You think? I know. You're not doing this out of spite. You're doing it because it's right. Because someone with power needs to demand better, and you have the power to do it. The call came Wednesday morning. Marcus, his voice carefully neutral, accepting our terms. We scheduled the paperwork for the following week. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired, but also, somehow, lighter. On Thursday, I drove to the cemetery where my mother was buried. I brought ube halaya, a new batch, made from scratch. I sat by her headstone and told her everything. I know you wanted me to find someone who understood both sides of me, I said to the granite marker. Someone who would honor where I came from, but Marcus wasn't that person. He wanted the parts of being Filipino that made him comfortable, that fit his family's idea of what was acceptable. He didn't want the complicated parts, the parts that made him question his own biases. The wind rustled through the trees overhead, carrying the scent of eucalyptus. But here's what I realized, Mama. I don't need someone to validate my identity. You gave me everything I needed. The language might be fractured, the cultural knowledge incomplete, but it's mine. I'm Filipina because you were Filipina. That's enough. I left the ube halaya on her grave, a purple offering to memory and heritage and the future I was choosing for myself. 3 months later, Novatech's transformation was remarkable. With Catalyst's oversight and resources, they'd hired a diverse leadership team, implemented blind hiring practices, and discovered, just as I'd predicted, that diverse perspectives unlocked opportunities they'd never seen before. Their customer base expanded dramatically when someone pointed out that their product design had been optimized only for users with American cultural assumptions. Marcus and I maintained a strictly professional relationship. At board meetings, he was respectful, competent, and increasingly humble. I heard through Jennifer, who'd apologized and remained my friend, that he'd had a serious conversation with his mother about her prejudices. Whether it changed anything, I didn't know. That wasn't my concern anymore. I went on dates with other people. A lawyer, a professor, an artist. Some went well, some didn't. I wasn't in a hurry. I had my work, my friends, my slowly rebuilding connection to my mother's culture on my own terms. I also started a scholarship fund at Catalyst, specifically for Filipino-American students pursuing business or technology degrees. I named it after my mother, the Lila Santos Memorial Scholarship. The application required an essay about navigating multiple cultural identities. I read every single one, recognizing pieces of my own story in their words. One evening, 6 months after that disastrous Easter, I got an email from a young woman named Isabel. She'd received our scholarship and wanted to thank me. She was half Filipina, she wrote, and had always felt too American for her Filipino family, too Filipino for her American friends. The scholarship essay had been the first time she'd written about that feeling, and it had helped her realize she didn't have to choose. "You don't have to be perfect to be Filipino," she wrote. "You just have to be yourself." I read that line 3 times, feeling something unlock in my chest. She was right. I'd spent years trying to prove I was Filipino enough. First for my mother's extended family after she died, then for Marcus's family, and finally for myself. But the truth was simpler and more profound than that. I was Filipino because I carried my mother's blood, her stories, her strength. I was Filipino in the ube halaya I made from memory, in the fragments of Tagalog that lived in my mind, in the way I understood without words the importance of family and food and fighting for what mattered. I was Filipino in the way I'd stood up for myself and others, in the way I'd used my power to demand better, in the way I'd refused to accept someone else's definition of what I should be. And I was American too, in my directness, my ambition, my belief that systems could be changed if you pushed hard enough. I didn't have to choose between these identities. They were both mine, woven together like the lumpia my mother had taught me to fold, different ingredients creating something stronger together than apart. I wrote back to Isabel, thanking her for her wisdom. Then I opened a new document and began drafting a blog post about identity, belonging, and the power of embracing our whole selves. It would be my first time writing publicly about being mixed race, about navigating cultural gatekeeping, about the journey towards self-acceptance. My mother had always said that the most powerful thing you could do was tell your truth. For years, I'd kept mine locked away, afraid of judgment or rejection. But I was done with that now. The post went up the next morning. By afternoon, it had been shared thousands of times. By evening, my inbox was flooded with messages from other mixed-race people, other second-generation immigrants, other people who'd felt caught between worlds. "Thank you for saying this. I thought I was the only one who felt this way." This helped me understand my own daughter's experience. and one message from an address I didn't recognize, brief and unsigned. You were right. About all of it. I'm sorry I couldn't see it before. I hope you find someone who deserves you. M. I read it once, then deleted it. Marcus's apology wasn't what I needed anymore. I'd already found what I was looking for, not in someone else's validation, but in my own acceptance of who I was and who I'd always been. That night, I made dinner for myself, a fusion meal my mother would have loved. Adobo with a twist, pancit with unexpected vegetables, and for dessert, ube halaya served in a modern presentation. I set the table carefully, lit a candle, and raised a glass of wine. To you, Mama, I said to the empty room that somehow felt full, for giving me everything I needed, even if it took me years to understand it, for being both Filipino and American, and showing me that I could be too, for teaching me lakas ng loob, the courage to stand up for myself. The candle flickered in the quiet apartment. Outside, Oakland sparkled in the darkness, full of possibility and promise. Somewhere in the city, other people were probably dealing with their own identity struggles, their own family dramas, their own journeys toward self-acceptance. But here, in this moment, I was exactly who I needed to be. Not half of anything. Not a phase or an experiment or someone who needed to prove their worthiness. Just Maya. Whole, complete, and finally free. I took a bite of the ube halaya. It was perfect. The right balance of sweet and subtle, tradition and innovation. Just like me. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.